So what can I say about the interior? So the interior is actually pretty nice. There have been a lot of complaints about it being a little bit dated, but for this particular configuration, it is pretty nice with the silver trim and the black and sort of cream interior. And it just really comes together pretty nice. I was coming from a 2016 Mustang, and before then a 2008 335i. And I'd say that this does it for me in terms of luxury, in terms of the overall feel of it. It doesn't feel cheap at all. And also, I like the dual screens. Dual screens are pretty nice. And the screen is actually really easy to navigate. There's not a whole lot of options to go through. Of course, this isn't the fully loaded option car anyway. There's not a lot of options, but it is very clean, very easy to navigate and to use. And it's also pretty clear for most of the times. I don't have any issues with glare when I'm using it. Don't use it much anyway while I'm driving, but if I do need to at a stoplight or something like that, it's really easy to navigate. Let's talk about the dash. So initially, when I first got into this car, I had sat in it, and instantly, out of the cars that I had looked at online and researched, it was the one that stuck out the most. When I sat in it, I thought, whoa, this is pretty nice. When I look at the dash, and I turn the car on, of course, the gauges are illuminated day and night. And it's the white and purple feel there with a color scheme and some red, touches of red. But overall, the way that the gauges are set up with the screen, that digital screen in the middle, really nice feel there for having some information, at a glance. And also just overall nice feel. Definitely keeps in line with that luxury feel, but doesn't feel over the top like you're driving, an older, person's luxury car. Definitely has that youthful feel with that white illuminated gauges and the more trendy, modern, almost cell phone-like screen there in the middle. So, but yeah, definitely does the job and is very nice to look at. The steering wheel. The steering wheel is actually pretty nice. I like it. It very much is. It feels sporty, but is also comfortable. Easy to navigate with the switches and the different button controls on there. You can control, of course, the speaker sound. You can pick up calls. You can change the song that you're on. You can go back from the previous screen that you were on here. Cruise controls on here, and you can toggle through the menus on the dash as well through these buttons. Cool thing about this is that it has the paddle shifters. These paddle shifters are from the GTR. They are fairly nice to look at. And although this car isn't a GTR, it definitely is a close, I struggle to say close second, but it definitely is not a slouch, let's put it that way. This has definitely a lot of power for the road. Even for me, coming from having driven cars that have almost 500 horsepower, for the 400 horsepower that it has and the 350 torque, it really uses it very well. So it's very, very nice. Touch for the paddle shifters, and also when you use them. The turn signal is pretty ergonomic, fairly easy to use, very conveniently located. Don't feel like you have to reach outside of the steering wheel too much. Can basically with one hand turn the dial there as well. You can control on the left side, you can control the windows. You can unlock and lock the doors as well as your side view mirrors, all on the left side, located on the door panel. And you also have two different seat memory positions that it can handle. Side door is really nice. The interior panel, it's got some leather appointments, of course, and a little nice trim here with the silver, darker silver trim again. And it has the nice mixture of the black, the silver, and the cream interior. It's very, very nice. Also, the sound system is a Bose system. It actually does the job pretty nicely. It's really nice to just sit back, relax, and enjoy the music and also when you crank it up. I will say though that when I do crank it up max, I don't know if it's necessarily my phone settings or if it's settings within, I haven't really messed with the settings too much in the car itself, but it just doesn't seem to get as loud as I want it to be. So it does have a limit there. I wish you could go crank it up a little louder. Usually when I'm driving around, I'm at like 3/4 of the sound there, and 3/4 of the sound on the car, and at least, you know, halfway, sometimes 3/4 on the phone. So wish it had a little bit more range in the sound department. All right, so we're gonna take this for a test drive, and hopefully my camera guy can hold it straight. So I'm driving in standard. Standard is basically perfect for your everyday use. It's exactly what you need for, if you want to punch it, you can get the power. If you need it to chill, it can chill. And it's the mode I drive in the most. When I first drove this car, I remember feeling like, and I liked it. You know, I liked how it felt. I mean, as I'm driving now and in everyday daily driving, it definitely has a sportier suspension than your average sedan. It's gonna feel more of the bumps, even on a smooth road like I'm driving on now. You're gonna feel a lot more of the bumps, even in the standard suspension mode. The difference though is that when you switch it to sport mode, of course it gives you more feedback. It's a lot more sensitive to steering. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't bother me. I don't mind it, but it could bother you if you do want a more comfortable feel of a ride. But it does handle its own. You know, when you're turning a corner a little bit faster, if you're having that sporty moment or moments, you definitely can. It will hold your line. One thing I do, they talk about a lot though with this car, is that it has that electronic steering. So it's not necessarily as direct. It's using electronic motors to turn the wheel. And to be honest with you, it is sort of a problem. Even for me, as much as I like the car and I like the steering and the handling, it is detached. So when you're putting input into the steering wheel, it does lag a little bit, and that's the best way I can describe it. There's a little lag between when you're turning the wheel and the actual turning of the wheels. So it does feel detached as you're driving. So yeah, I mean, I would say that those complaints are not unfounded. They're definitely is an issue, but at the end of the day, it doesn't bother me. I got used to it. But I do notice that sometimes when, you know, I'm turning on the freeway and, you know, you're turning a little bit, it just feels a little detached. You want that direct steering so that you can take that corner the way you want. So I could imagine it could be harder on the track whether you're driving when you need that actual feedback to be as precise as possible. But other than that, it's good for daily driving. When you flip it into sport though, it is more fidgety. So sometimes when you jerk the wheel to the right or left too fast, it'll compensate by jerking the wheels up front, and it will feel like a very unnatural turn, especially when you're on the freeway. At higher speeds, of course, more noticeable. However though, it's, I mean, really smooth. Sometimes I throw it into eco mode, and when I'm driving in eco mode, it's almost like a whole different car. You know, it feels like a 4-cylinder. I'm just chilling. You know, I accelerate, and its whole purpose of that mode is to save gas. And I think I've mixed combo between city and highway about 24 miles per gallon, which I think is pretty good, because I think city is 21 and I think highway is about 28. So yeah, I mean, 24 is, I think, pretty optimal. And I drive pretty spirited as well, so for me to get, it's 23.9. For me to get close to 24 is pretty good. And now that's another thing, gas mileage. Gas mileage is pretty decent for a 3.0 twin turbo. And yeah, eco mode is a gas saver for sure. It's a lifesaver there. And of course, you know, if you have the right driving habits, you can definitely save on that. I think the tank has about, from what I remember, I believe it's 18 gallons. It's either 18 or 20. But with, I mean, one tank, at one time I got about 450 miles out of one whole tank. So I mean, I don't necessarily go into the gas station as much, getting about 23 to 24 miles a gallon. I'm looking at about, and I drive a lot, you know, for work and things like that. I'm looking at about, you know, once a week to a week and a half, going to the pump for fill up. If you want, and I don't believe that this has a Valvetronic exhaust, but if you want in eco mode, I can flip it to eco mode. I can barely hear the exhaust. I mean, it's just as quiet as you want it to be. Whisper into the neighborhood at night, you know, late at night, not disturb any neighbors. But then when you put it into sport, and especially Sport Plus, it opens up, and you can definitely hear the exhaust note a lot better. You can hear the engine a lot better. And in standard mode, you can't hear as much either, but that Sport and Sport Plus really changes the tone of the car, which is really neat. So it's when you want it, right? So it's cool to have that option as you're driving. It definitely is pretty comfortable to sit in. I don't remember feeling any strain after about even an hour of sitting in it. And it's even something that I even look forward to driving around the country. It would be very, into San Diego or even another state, or even driving around the country. Yeah, but yeah, it is definitely it's comfortable. I like the perforated leather seats too, so they do breathe a lot better than those that are not. So I don't really sweat through these seats anyway. And I tend to sweat in the seats, so these have been definitely breathable and very comfortable. Brake feel. So what I like about this car is that the brakes are actually pretty solid. So very, very responsive as I hit the brakes. Definitely get that instant feedback, in a sense, where if I input a braking application, it gives me what I want, and it gives me a little bit more than I feel like I should expect. And coming from having driven a car with front Brembos, very similar, of course, but that's not the Brembo name, but yeah, you can tell that it is a performance brake, and will stop when you need it to. Cruising speeds are really nice, when sometimes I'll throw it into a cruise control and do it 40, 50, 60, sometimes on the freeway, and it's just pretty smooth. I can kind of just sit back, relax, and just let the car do its thing. Very, very comfortable when you want it to be. Cool thing is, when you want it to go, you can get it to go. So yeah, we're about to do that here soon. So I'm gonna switch it to Sport Plus, and we can go on the bridge. Let's go on the bridge. And so I'm in Sport Plus now. You might be able to hear it more. Now. There we go, and hit it now. And so, that wasn't even full throttle, and it just gets the job done. And it's almost too much. This is a 35 mile an hour bridge. It's already, I hit 62, 63 miles an hour right there. And yeah, it's pretty fun. And I'll tell you, when I first picked it up, when I first test drove it, it was very surprising. And I think that's what Infiniti, did right with this one, is I think it was targeting at the time the M3 and the C63 AMG, or AMGs in general. And it was, I think I read some reviews, they said that this was their best attempt yet back then in 2016. And in terms of power, it definitely is no slouch. And then for a sedan, it's no slouch too. This thing, I think, prices out at $60,000 when it's new. It does hit a lot of depreciation, so within a few years, this thing's like in the low 30s, 2 to 3 years. Actually, in 3 years, it's in the low 30s, and sometimes in 4 years, you'll find some 2016s in the high 20s. If you're really good at finding some of them, you can find them in the mid 20s, and so you get a lot of car for the value. Up front, though, I don't necessarily recommend. I probably wouldn't buy this car if it's brand new, because there's so many other competitors. The S4, you have the M3, M4, you have the C63. And a whole lot of other American domestics. Even you can get a really nice Mustang 5.0, you can get a Camaro SS, you could even get a used C7. So there's a lot of stuff out there you could get for $60,000, but at $25,000 or $30,000 with a warranty on it. Still, this thing still has its warranty, and it was like a 4-year, I think 60. I got 4 years, or no, sorry, 5 years, 60,000 mile warranty on this. For in the 20s. It's just a killer deal. So I bought it at 15 months left, and it's 2016, and I bought it last November. So yeah, definitely a great value if you're looking to get a car with a lot of power, luxury, and overall feel. I did test drive a 3.0 T, just a Q50, non-Red Sport, non-Silver Sport either. And it just seemed very tame, very I would even say very almost economy car like in terms of the styling of it. I mean, it definitely is not an economy car in terms of you know, the Infiniti brand, but definitely just didn't do it for me. But this car especially, it doesn't have the rear diffuser and the rear bumper, but the front bumper and its aggressive styling with that, it's got a little bit of a lip, and the more square. It's got more angles to it than even the 3.0T Q50, and I just really like the front, especially the rears looks nice, taillights look great, headlights look fantastic to me. Like how it illuminates the street at night, and it's just really solid overall in terms of its looks and styling. And I mean, I'll admit that even sometimes I'll go back and I'll, you know, park my car and I'll look back and just appreciate its styling and how it looks. I will say, compared to the competition, does it look like an M3? Does it look as good as a C63? No, it doesn't. But for me, what you're getting, I think it gets the job done for sure. So I bought this around 30,000 miles and now has about 37.4 on it. So I only put 7,500 miles on it, and it is actually a very, very young car still. It doesn't have a lot of, I mean, it was a leased car before, so it doesn't have a lot of, you know, mileage and being hammered and all that. 2 owners, I think it had, when I looked at the Carfax. So I'm the 3rd owner, and the second owner only had it for like 2 years, and then the one before that, 2 years, or like 1.5 years, another like 2 years or something like that. But yeah, I mean, this thing, I think the only issues I've had on it were the serpentine belt, which is a common issue on this. And went to the dealer, told them about it, heard the squeaky, you know, belt thing. I was like, oh, it's a common problem. So they fixed it, and no charge to me. Also had this funky thing with the AC. It was switching automatically whenever, like, I wasn't inputting anything, and it was switching automatically. And they were telling me that there is an auto mode that I wasn't aware of. So I basically was like, it was just turning like from, like, you know, the AC hitting your face to going to your feet by itself, and I just couldn't figure out why it was doing that. I've never had a car that did that. So it does have an auto mode. They just shut it off, and now it's fine. It works perfect. And yeah, so reliability wise, I drive it very spirited. You know, there are times I do chill, and when I'm working, I just like to relax. So it's a mixture. That 7,500 miles I've driven is a mixture, and that has been fairly and relatively carefree miles, very enjoyable miles. And yeah, I don't feel like I've not experienced any reliability issues with it. So overall, you know, this is a pretty solid car for what you're getting. It is definitely very fast for a sedan, and especially to get 400 horsepower at mid-20s is actually pretty credible for a 2016. That's a car that's still under warranty. So like I was looking to see if I would get a different car than this, and there's not much in terms of horsepower that's 30,000 and under. That's newer than 2016 or even 2015. So I mean, I suppose you could get like a Camaro or Mustang from 2016, but it would definitely be a higher mileage, and for sure out of warranty, because both of those, I think Camaro and Mustangs are both 3-year, 36,000 mile warranties. So it is nice. I mean, I'm not saying that you have to have a warranty on a car, because you can do stuff yourself. I've done stuff on my own cars before. I have a lift at home, but it is nice to not have to worry about it. When something goes wrong, go to the dealer, they take care of it free of charge. Have a loaner for the day. I've got a loaner, a QX60. No, it was a QX50. QX50 from 2020, and got to test drive that, and I had my eye on it. I saw it on the streets, had my eye on it, and I'm like, man, I'm more convinced because they let me test drive one. But just cool things like that, where when you have a warranty, it's a lot easier to handle, and the service at the particular dealer I had was pretty solid, so worked out pretty well. I think Infiniti has definitely done I think a pretty decent job back then in 2016 to get themselves a lot more aligned with competing with that segment, the M3s and the BMW and Mercedes and what they have, and Audi and what they have to offer. I will say though that they are, if they wanted to update their the Q50 Red Sport to another, like say to a 450 horsepower version, and updated the interior and made some adjustments in terms of driving dynamics, they would definitely be right there. You know, I know there's going to be loyalists for BMW and Mercedes and Audi and stuff like that, but this is definitely up there for sure in terms of a competition, something not to ignore, and something for them to actually consider. You know, BMW, Mercedes, and other competitors to consider how to navigate. But since then, they definitely have done a lot of different things. BMW has come out with some pretty amazing cars since 2016. Same thing with Mercedes. And yeah, and so we'll see what Infiniti does. I think right now in 2020 they still have the Red Sport 400, still the same horsepower configuration and horsepower and torque configuration. But if they do decide to update it and facelift and all that kind of stuff and go to a next gen, it'd be pretty interesting to see. So that's the review. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you haven't already, please like, comment below if you have any thoughts about this car, or if you have it yourself. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, so you get more content. I'm planning to do more car content for you guys and mix in with the houses, so houses and cars theme there. And yeah, we'll see you guys next video.